That is a completely untenable solution. Those words did not come from a tabloid editorial. They did not come from a Sussex critic on social media. They came from Tom Bower, and they came not in a casual aside, but on a recorded Royal podcast in March of this year, 3 days before his new book reached the shelves. The word he chose was specific, not unlikely, not complicated, untenable. Tonight we are going through what that word actually means in his framing, why it lands harder in 2026 than it would have landed in 2023, and the new receipts the public record has produced in the last 3 months that the original commentary cycle did not have. We are not predicting a divorce, we are reading the math. And the math has begun to do something it was not doing a year ago. Why does the word untenable land harder than the words that came before it? Other commentators have used soft language for years. Some called the marriage complicated. Some called the commercial strategy unfocused. Some called the geographic split inconvenient. None of those words describe a structural problem. They describe a difficult situation that can be improved with better choices. Untenable is a different category of word. It describes a situation that cannot be sustained on its current foundations. It is closer to the language of an engineer than a gossip columnist. And Bower is not an engineer, he is a biographer with a 40-year track record of writing about powerful people from inside their orbits. When he chooses that specific word on the record, days before a book release he knows will be litigated against, he is doing something deliberate. He is making a claim that the present arrangement is not a phase, it is not a difficult patch, it is a situation that the available evidence says cannot continue on its current shape without something significant giving way. That is the claim. Tonight we are checking whether the public record supports it. 2 clocks running down. That is what the documents seem to describe. Whether the description holds is the question. Tonight we are going through the full picture, the exact words Bower used on the podcast and what he said next. The numbers Newsweek published 2 weeks ago that the original Bower commentary cycle did not have, the book that came out in March, and what it claims about the Invictus Plan, Andrew Lownie's separate work from last year, which arrived at overlapping observations through different sources. And the question that sits underneath all of it, whether a tense situation has an answer the available evidence supports, or whether the word Bower chose is doing the work it was selected to do. Let's start with Bower because his entire argument rests on his standing, and his standing is sometimes treated as if it were optional. It is not. Bower has spent 40 years writing biographies of powerful men. Robert Maxwell, Conrad Black, Muhammad Al-Fayed, Bernie Ecclestone. He has been threatened with litigation more times than most working biographers, and the books have stood. His earlier Sussex biography, Revenge, was published in 2022. It made a specific claim. The marriage was operating from 2 different scripts and the public stage was keeping that gap invisible. That claim was contested at the time. It is no longer contested in the same way it was. His new book, Betrayal, published in March of this year, returns to the same argument with 3 more years of evidence layered onto it. The book was serialized in the times before publication. Excerpts were also covered by Sky News and the BBC. Buckingham Palace declined to comment as it does not respond to biographies. The Sussex camp called the book a fixation filled with deranged conspiracy. They did not, in any public statement, identify a specific factual claim in the book to dispute. That is a particular kind of pushback. It is not a denial of any specific claim, it is a dismissal of the entire frame. Both things can be heard and both can be weighed. Around the same time the book reached the shelves, Bower sat for a recorded conversation with the Royalist Podcast at the Daily Beast. He was asked whether Harry could be brought back into the fold with some form of job. His answer was published on the 24th of March. He said Harry would like that solution. He said Meghan would not. He said she does not want to be part of Britain. She wants to be a star in California. And then he said the line that has not stopped being quoted since: as long as they are married, that is a completely untenable solution. Those are not paraphrased words, they are on the recorded podcast. They were quoted in the Daily Beast write-up the same day. Bower then went 1 sentence further than the headlines tend to repeat. He said the current arrangement is a recipe for more sensational danger. The reason in his framing is that Meghan cannot be satisfied and does not want to be part of the British royal family. That second sentence is doing as much work as the first. The headlines tend to drop it. Now, let's talk about why the word lands differently in 2026 than it would have landed in 2023. Because the central argument is the same. What has changed is the evidence underneath it. The numbers Newsweek has been tracking are the receipts the original Bauer cycle did not have. Let's start with the polling. In the third quarter of 2025, YouGov America measured Meghan's net approval rating at plus 15, liked by 37%, disliked by 22%. That is a comfortable position for a public figure whose entire commercial strategy depends on American audiences. By the first quarter of 2026, that net rating had moved to plus 2. Liked by 29, disliked by 27, a 13-point swing in 2 quarters in the only country where her brand has reach. That is not noise. That is a directional pattern in the data, in the market that matters. Now, let's talk about the website. As ever launched in 2025 with a Netflix tie-in. In December of last year, the site recorded approximately 108,000 visitors from the United States. By April of this year, that figure had dropped to roughly 61,500, nearly halved in 4 months. Newsweek pulled the data from SimilarWeb, the same intelligence platform used by most commercial analysts. The total American visitor count between January and May of 2026 came to 392,000. That is not nothing. It is also not a number that supports the original Netflix era projection. And then on the 3rd of January, the website had a technical glitch. The basket function failed to cap orders at available stock levels. Anyone with a browser and an afternoon could read off the inventory directly. The total came in at more than 650,000 units. The retail value of that stockpile, calculated by independent reviewers from the published prices, was approximately $21.8 million. That is a lot of jam. That is a lot of honey. That is a lot of wine sitting in a warehouse waiting for someone to buy it. The inventory is documented. The traffic is documented. The polling is documented. If this channel is reading the documents you keep asking other channels to read, the like button helps. It helps the channel reach more people who want this kind of analysis. None of that costs anything. Now let's bring this back to the marriage. In March of 2026, the same month Bauer used his word on the podcast, Netflix quietly withdrew from its equity stake in As Ever. That is not a tabloid claim. It is a Newsweek report based on company filings and confirmed sources. The Spotify deal ended earlier without the replacement that was implied when it was signed. With Love, Meghan released a second season and a December special in 2025. Both dropped out of the top 1,000 watched Netflix shows in the second half of the year, not the top 100, the top 1,000. A streamer can absorb one underperforming show. Absorbing the entire commercial strategy underneath the show is a different question. By every available signal, the income side of the equation has been narrowing for 18 months. Now look at the other side of the page. The Daily Mail privacy trial last year carried approved budgets of approximately £4 million per side. The earlier settlement with the publisher of The Sun was reported to have exceeded $10 million. The Montecito mortgage is documented. The security setup that replaced the British government's protection is documented. The staffing levels visible in California company filings are documented. Bauer's estimate of $3 to $6 million in annual running costs is not a guess. It is an addition. A fixed inheritance against a fixed annual draw produces a horizon. The horizon moves closer when the draw is constant and the income flow contracts. That is what the public record has been describing for 18 months. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss what we cover next. The question we will be asking under the next video is what the security ruling actually changes if the underlying math has not shifted. Now let's add Tom Bauer's specific allegation from the new book because the Sussex camp's response to it is the part the coverage skipped. Bauer writes in Betrayal that Harry had planned to use the Birmingham Invictus Games in 2027. The book calls it the vehicle for what would be a triumphant return. The plan, as the book describes it, involved Charles opening the games. Meghan dramatically unveiling Archie and Lilibet to the world. The children, in effect, becoming the staging element for the family's re-entry into the institution. The list of requested arrangements reported alongside the plan was specific: 24-hour drivers, a fleet of luxury cars, a police escort from the airport to the hotel. Whether every line of that report holds up, the broader pattern is the receipt. A plan designed by people who still measure success by stagecraft and headline density, not by quiet absorption back into a working role. Untenable is not a verdict. It is a description of physics. A return cannot be staged as a coronation when the institution is run as a bureaucracy. Those two registers cannot be made compatible by force of will. That is the central fact the new book points at. And it is the part the original cycle of Bower coverage did not yet have, because the book was not yet out. And there is one more receipt the original cycle did not carry. The Centrebale charity that Harry co-founded in 2006 to support children affected by HIV in Southern Africa. In 2025, the chair of the charity, Sophie Chandalka, brought a public dispute with Harry into the open. Bower's new book quotes Chandalka telling Harry directly that people did not want to be associated with his Netflix shows, and specifically not with Meghan. Harry, according to the book, replied by citing Johnny Depp as a box office star, despite his legal battles with Amber Heard. That is the conversation Bower reports. It is reproduced by the Daily Beast, which republished the Times serialisation. Centrebale later became, in Bower's framing, an early warning, not because of the donations question, which is documented in the charity's filings, because of the response. A man who points at Johnny Depp to defend his wife's brand alignment is arguing from a weak position. It is the kind of position he cannot afford to be arguing from at all. There is one more thread that runs through the story, and the original commentary cycle treats it as secondary because it was published a year earlier. Andrew Lownie's 2025 book, entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York, is not primarily about the Sussexes. It is about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and his family. But the book reproduces a specific exchange between Andrew and Harry before the Sussex wedding. Andrew, in Lownie's account, told Harry the marriage would not last a month. He accused Harry of going what the book calls bonkers. He said Meghan was too old for him and that the wedding would be the biggest mistake Harry had ever made. These are not Bower's claims. They are Lownie's in a separately researched book drawing on different sources. Two biographers working from different rooms arrive at overlapping observations about what people inside the family said when the marriage was still a hypothesis. That is the part of the record that gives the central argument its weight. Not one researcher, not one book, 3 independent research bases producing the same shape. And then there is Angela Levin. Her position, repeated across multiple interviews on GB News and other outlets, is precise. Levin holds that Meghan would only return to the United Kingdom under a specific condition. The condition is that she be given the kind of public role that Catherine, the Princess of Wales, currently holds. Levin frames this as jealousy. The more relevant point is that the institution is not designed to deliver that. The Princess of Wales did not negotiate her position. She did not inherit it because she demanded it. She has it because she married the future king and because she has built quiet credibility in the role over 20 years. That is not something that can be transferred. It is also not something the institution would offer on request, even if the people inside it wanted to. So look at the gap between what Levin says Meghan would require and what the institution can actually provide. It is the same gap Bower is pointing at from his own angle. Two researchers, two different framings, the same underlying observation about what cannot be made to fit. Now let's step back. What does this say about the larger pattern? It says the same thing the commentators have been saying for 2 years, but it now says it with documents instead of impressions. Tom Bower has not been sued for the betrayal claims at the time of publication. Andrew Lownie has not been sued for entitled. Tom Sykes at the Daily Beast has been pointing for months at the tension between the publicly stated direction and the privately reported scramble. Richard Eden at the Daily Mail has been documenting the security litigation and what it implies about long-term residency planning. The named commentators are not a single source repeating each other. They are working from different rooms, different relationships, different document piles. They keep arriving at the same observation. Two people whose ideas of a meaningful life pull in different directions. A fixed inheritance, shrinking against recurring costs. opportunities concentrated on opposite sides of an ocean, a sense of belonging that one place can provide and the other cannot. None of these observations requires a villain. None requires a single dramatic event. They describe an underlying situation, the kind that does not resolve itself by waiting for the next big deal to arrive. What observers keep noting is that the public appearances and the private direction have begun to describe different things. The Australia trip in April was a successful public outing. So was the Inglewood appearance at the NBA All-Star Game in February. Neither tour, neither appearance, neither photograph changes the inventory level. Neither closes the YouGov approval gap. Neither converts a 61,500 April traffic count into a sustainable American consumer base. Public appearances have a beginning and an end. The numbers in the public record have neither. They just continue. 2 clocks running down. The 1-year countdown event for the Invictus Games is in Birmingham in July of this year. Whether Meghan attends will be visible. How she attends is the real question, as partner in a royal re-entry or as a Californian business owner doing a working trip. Both readings have been published, both readings have named sources, both cannot be true at once. To be fair, the counter-argument is not weak and it is owed direct treatment. A source close to As Ever, quoted by Newsweek, said the business was on track to double in size this year. That is the company's own framing of the same data. The January glitch that revealed inventory levels also produced a different calculation. By some external readings, retail sales had passed £26 million in the brand's first year. £26 million is not a failed launch. It is a credible debut for a lifestyle brand in a crowded category. Shane Watson has argued a different reading. In her framing, Meghan can return to Britain on her own terms. As a Californian business owner with leverage, not as a chastened defector. That reading has merit. A business that recorded over 1 million global visits between January and May is not a brand in collapse. It is a brand in a transition. And the Sussex camp's own statement on the Bauer book did not concede a single specific claim. They called the book a fixation filled with deranged conspiracy. That is a strong denial, and it should be reported alongside the book's allegations rather than buried. The reason that reading does not fully hold is the geographic component. A successful American business is a successful American business. It does not move across the Atlantic for sentimental reasons. It moves where its customer base is. And the customer base for As Ever, by every published measure, is in the United States. So the counter-argument resolves the financial question only by deepening the geographic one. Each piece of good news for the business tightens the constraint on the return. Both readings are partly true. They do not combine into a coherent path. So return now to the word that started this. Untenable. Not unlikely, not complicated, untenable. A description in the specific register Bauer chose of a situation that cannot be sustained on its current foundations. The Newsweek data did not exist when he chose the word. The inventory glitch did not exist. The Netflix exit was a rumour, not a filing. The 13-point YouGov swing had not yet been measured. The Centibale exchange had not yet been published. The Lownie book had been published, but its overlap with Bauer's framing was not yet visible. Framing. The word he chose has been confirmed by the data that arrived after he chose it. That does not make it a prediction. It makes it an observation that the available evidence has continued to support across the months when it could have been contradicted. The arithmetic does not vote, and it does not care who is liked. You cannot demand a triumphant return. You can only earn an ordinary one. The institution Harry grew up inside does not stage re-entries. It absorbs people quietly into roles, or it does not. The American consumer base that Meghan's brand requires does not wait. It either continues to visit the website or it does not. 2 clocks running down. That is the shape of the public record at this point in 2026. The Birmingham Countdown event in July will produce a photograph. The photograph will not change the inventory level. It will not move the YouGov rating. It will not negotiate with the geographic constraint. It will simply add one more visible data point to a sequence that has been producing the same shape for 18 months. Bauer's word was specific. He chose it before the evidence had finished arriving. The evidence has now arrived. The word still fits. So here is the question for you. Do the new receipts make Bauer's word stronger than it was when he chose it? Or do you read the same data differently? A brand in transition, a marriage moving through its own seasons, the way every long marriage does. Drop your honest take in the comments below. And if you watched Harry walk behind that coffin in 1997, here is a second question. Do you read this current chapter as the story of a boy abandoned by everyone who should have helped him? Or as the story of a man who chose the wrong path away from his family? Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss what comes next. And a like genuinely helps us reach more people who want this kind of analysis. See you in the next one.